Welcome, welcome. So many familiar names here. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we're just gonna give a few more minutes to allow for everyone from the waiting room to trickle on in. And so what you're seeing on the screen are just some norms for our time together. I'm sure all things that you are already familiar with, just keeping yourself muted unless you're actively participating at the moment. We are actually asking, which is not the norm, to keep videos off for today, right? And we're only asking of that in order to preserve the bandwidth, to make sure that nothing gets slowed down. And to utilize the chat. We love the chat. So I'll be in there jumping in as much as possible as well. We would love to hear your comments, questions, all of that in the chat. So we love a very active chat. All right. So I know Krista shared some of this information during our opening keynote session. And I see so many familiar faces that I know you probably already have all of this. But again, just a reminder, if you're not on our mailing list, please join our mailing list. We are sending out updates to regulatory guidance all the time. We're sharing different professional development opportunities. So join our mailing list there. And if you are looking for on-demand professional development, please go to our YouTube channel. There's so many resources there and we're constantly updating it. And I would like to introduce our presenters for today. I got really lucky with this session because I am introducing two of my colleagues who I've worked with for many, many years. First, I want to introduce to you Amanda Chansing, who was my former co-teacher for so many years. And no one tell Kelly, but the bond that Amanda and I made through co-teaching in the K-12 setting is very different from co-teaching when we were teaching with adults and teachers. So I'm just so grateful to have Amanda here. Amanda is currently working for ESPOCES, and she is working in that DEI department. So I'm sure many of you have been seeing her conducting her own professional development through ESPOCES. And of course, I would like to also introduce Dr. Sian Cho. She is my supervisor at the College of Mount St. Vincent, where Amanda and I both teach there. We are adjunct professors there. So again, this is a really exciting session to be hosting today with two of my colleagues that are really dear to my heart. So without further ado, I know some of us are just joining, and welcome, but I'm going to stop sharing so that our presenters can take over.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. And I'm so happy I see some familiar faces and some familiar names. And I'm just happy that you chose to be here when you had other choices. So to begin, I was going to introduce myself, but Erica did a nice enough job there. So we're going to move right along. So welcome to Strategies to Promote Individual and Cultural Identity. If you see me looking this way, it's because my presentation is on this screen and my camera is here and I dare not move it.
Amanda, can you just share your screen? We don't see it yet.
Yes, thank you. There you go. Let me know. Yes, thumbs up, great. So welcome to Strategies to Promote Individual Cultural Identity. Myself and Dr. Cho are so happy that you chose to be here. And let's move. So our agenda for today, I'm not going to go over the protocols and norms because Erica just did that. We're really looking into digital storytelling today. And a lot of what was shared by Dr. Medina is really some of the kind of topics that we will be discussing. As I was taking notes today, I wrote down meaningful engagement, right? Diversity, rigor. So all of those words hopefully live in what we are going to share with you today. So we're going to look at digital storytelling first, Then Dr. Cho will be sharing about photovoice projects, and then our closing and takeaways. I'm going to skip over this, but please share through the chat and at some point in the breakout rooms. So why are we doing this, right? Why did we choose this? Well, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but we really feel that our students' voices need to be heard, no matter what level they are at, right? And we heard that translanguaging and just being like that co-conspirator. So all of these words coming together, these being an advocate for our students really speaks to the why of digital storytelling and photo voice projects, because we want our students to be fully engaged. And I know when I'm fully engaged, it means that I want to do something. It's not something that I'm being told to do and being forced to do, right? I'm telling my story, and we saw how it's so powerful, right, with Dr. Medina's story when we're telling our story. And as participants, let me just move this out of your way. As participants, I'd like you in your breakout rooms today, and when you leave, to think about how are some ways that you can use these strategies in your classroom, bring it to other content areas, speak to your colleagues about what you're seeing and hearing today. Think about what type of units you already teach, right? So not reinventing the wheel, but using what you already do in your narrative units to use these strategies that we're going to be sharing. So as I share our current reality, which really means is just taking a look at what are some things that we are dealing with right now in our classrooms, right? Our culture right now. So I'm going to go through each one. And in the chat, if you could share one of them that really stands out to you that maybe you're familiar with or you're dealing with, or one of them that really speaks to you. So our current reality. How do our multilingual students feel about their cultural identity? How do your students feel about their cultural identity? How do they share their cultural identity with others, with students that are not in your class? What are their relationships like with other students in your school? How do you as a teacher identify multilingual learners' cultural resources? How do you integrate them into your lessons and curriculum? So how do you integrate those cultural resources in your lessons and curriculum? How do our multilingual students feel about writing in American English? How do they feel about writing narratives? And how do they feel about presenting, right, in English? Do you give them opportunities to present in their L1? And what about discussion skills? What type of discussion skills do they have? Or what do they struggle with? So with these 7 choices in the chat, if you could put down the number that really speaks to you or something that you're struggling with or you feel that your students are struggling with, and just share what it is about that. And if you need me to repeat something, please let me know. So I see a lot of number 7. Would somebody like to unmute and maybe share? If I could have, actually, I'm going to call on someone. I know it's not good practice to cold call, but with so many people in the room. Let's see, a number 7, Renee. Could you please share why number 7 for you? If you
I
don't
hope I'm
mind.
the only Renee. I don't know if I am.
I know, me too. I'm hoping to, but
So I chose number 7, which is the one that talks about oral presentation and discussion skills. I find that my students don't typically push back when I design instruction that includes oral presentation or discussion skills, but they don't want to go further than the superficial answer. So like when we're scaffolding instruction, they'll give a very basic answer, and then if I prompt them with a sentence stem, or if we have conversation frames to kind of deepen that discussion, that's when I'll hear that they're uncomfortable with it, or, you know, they'll question like, well, why do I have to do that? And I don't know if that's because of the fact that they were on Zoom essentially for 2 years and they're used to it, or if it's just something that hasn't been worked on with them in the past.
So what I'm hearing you say is like really, we as educators, we really want to get them that rigorous piece, right? For them not to give that superficial, right, response, but having them dig a little deeper. Yes, I see you nodding. Thank you for sharing. And we'll have one more person share for number 2. I'm looking at Elizabeth G. How do they share their cultural identity with others?
Mm-hmm. Am I there?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, good. Hi. I think that they do struggle with it because they often don't want to speak about where they come from with their peers. I'm lucky in a way that when I have them all together, that we have a relationship where they do openly talk about where they come from and their struggles and their connectedness and what they have in common. But yeah, it's definitely something that we can improve and work on more together.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that's something that I connected with as well. As a teacher with my multilingual learners, in my class, they were very open. They were willing to share. But once they went into another class, they were not sharing. It wasn't happening there. So what can we do to kind of bridge that? So digital storytelling is a way of allowing our students to have access, right, to their own story. And sometimes, as you saw today, I was so happy to hear Dr. Medina's share, because he started with his story, right? And this is done within your narrative units. And we're as teachers, the narrative unit is part of what we do. So having our students tell their stories using digital multimedia, right, which could be a recording, a video, digital graphics, and we're going to see some examples of that today, is really important because we get to hear their voice. They get to use their own language, right? As they're trying to learn this other language, they can tell their story in their own language too. It's implemented by using a framework, right? A narrative storytelling framework, and really thinking about a theme. So as the teacher, I'm thinking about a theme within my unit that this lends itself to, and understanding that I need to have my students understand what a viewpoint is. So there is some pre-teaching going on here of skills, right? It's a personal story that you're telling. However, it could be done in every, and it has been done in every content area, as you're going to see today. So I'm not going to read this all to you as you have access to the presentation, but here is one app that you can use to create your digital story, your digital stories on. And as the teacher, I would say for you to kind of create your own first, and then show your students how to do that. So we can use Adobe Sparks, but there are many other apps that you can use also to do this. So I provided for you, there's actually a whole center on digital storytelling, and there's like these specific areas, right? These elements that are part of digital storytelling. And with each of these, you can make it your own. Yes, they're saying that these are the elements, but we know as ELA teachers, ENL teachers, that there are some of these things that live in everything that we're teaching. So as we're teaching narrative writing, we're teaching points of view, we're teaching how to create the ending of a story. So all of these are elements that we are familiar with. And if we're not, we can go to the digital storytelling website to get more information on that. And I'll provide my email as well. You can always reach out to me as well, and I'll provide further information. So why digital storytelling? Well, thinking about what you heard today, it really causes our students, or allows our students to develop empathy and take a different perspective of others. So if I'm listening to your story, right, I'm connecting to you in a personal way. So it's culturally responsive. And these are stories that we can use in other classes as well. It doesn't always have to be in the ELA classroom. It gives us an understanding of who we are, right? It gives us some awareness of who we are and some self-reflection and pride that, hey, somebody wants to listen to my story, and it builds community. There is such a moment when we're all listening to each other's stories. And I know Erica Flores will agree to this as well, right? There's that aha moment, that heart moment, right? That we really connect to when we hear other people's perspectives and we empathize with one another. And I'm even asking to go beyond empathy, right? Where we have that understanding of who we are. So really, it empowers student voice and it gives way to cultural identity. There are ways to implement this in all content areas, and I'm actually going to show you where you can see some of those ways. So if you go to this link here, it tells us how to implement this in all content areas. Some of the examples you're going to see in your breakout room can be used in different content areas. So for social studies, you can do research with the digital video as the culminating project. This is an example for our math colleagues, right? So sometimes we think that these things just live in one area, one classroom, but they live in all areas. So trying to kind of push ourselves to share this strategy with all our colleagues is very important. So really creating that story, that word problem story that you can do in a group aligns itself with language development, yes, is interdisciplinary. Thank you. So with all that being said, I'd like you to take some time in watching some of these videos. So because sometimes when we see the end product, we can understand better what it is about. So in your breakout conversations today, I would like you to choose a video to watch in your group, right? You can choose, I think we have time for 2 videos. And depending on the month you were born, you can start there. Share what resonated with you, or if you have a different order, share what resonated with you from the video. And I really want you to think about voice, right? Student voice and cultural identity, right? How does this type of project strengthen student voice, create a sense of belonging, and promote language development? Okay, so we have the access to the links in the presentation. Erica just put that in the chat. And we're going to put you into breakout rooms and you can choose. I'll be jumping into the breakout sessions. And I think, Erica, we have time for about 12 to 15 minutes. What do you think? Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for participating in that. I didn't get to all rooms, but as I was visiting some of the rooms, there's some great conversation around what you were seeing. And I know some groups, you watched it by yourself, which was great because of the audio and some videos. So in our share out, I'm actually going to start. Let me share my screen. If I could have Bonnie from room 2, if you could please share your experience as you were watching it.
Is that me?
Yeah, Bonnie from room 2, yes.
Sorry. Oh my gosh, I forgot what I said already. Oh, just that, one of the things that I try to explain to a lot of teachers who are new to having L students in their classroom. This is my first year working in the elementary school. I'd always worked in the high school and the middle school with the secondary students. And, we do get into a lot of opinion and debate type things at the secondary level that can be a little bit more intense. And I try to explain to some of these teachers that they're not culturally, some places are not comfortable criticizing, especially any kind of political or cultural types of things. They don't have those freedoms that we're used to here. And I just thought it was outstanding that this young woman did this presentation on her home of Haiti and freely spoke about some of the things that she believed caused a lot of the biases in our country, in the United States, toward the Haitian communities.
Very powerful. Thank you for sharing, Bonnie. And then we'll go to John in room 3.
How's it going? We just spoke, hey Bonnie, we just spoke about how this would be just a great tool, particularly at the end of the year coming up. We're getting into the fourth quarter. I work with a lot of newcomers, and we could really just stretch this out over the, a few weeks even, to have the students make some type of culminating project where they don't feel the pressure to, they could take their time in expressing themselves, really work on the written aspect of it and the design aspect of it, something that they could be proud of, something that says a lot about them or their culture or whatever the project may be, and something that they'd be able to more easily share with other people. So I think it's great, especially, we now our students have Chromebooks, they all have access to the internet, and, just seems like a great opportunity for the kids to learn technology and, design something that they're proud of.
Right, those skills that they're going to need once they leave us, right, beyond these classroom walls. So, and we have to think about all of those pieces. So thank you for participating in that. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Cho.
Hello, welcome. Anyway, so late introduction. I'd like to talk about photovoice project, and the title photovoice is very self-explanatory, right? Photo and voice. So what is photovoice? Originally, it was a research action research methodology. So participants will collect their own data. And then it translated into education settings, and then educators are starting using as a pedagogical tools and advocacy tools. So it basically student generated photos that represent or reflect on the topic of investigation. So it is very purposeful. It's not just going out there taking photos. They have a very specific topic. So how is it implemented in the classroom? Maybe as a classroom teacher, you may have to, at the beginning, brainstorm, introduce topic and brainstorm first, and then ask them, document their lives or communities in relation to the topic of investigation by taking photos. I mean, students are doing all the time, they take photos and post to social media. So this is not a really new technique, yet very underutilized technique especially in classroom and schools. And then step 2 will be, once they bring photos, you can ask them to write about photos, like a small blog, or also discussions in group or whole class settings, or you can interview each student by just giving what's going on in this photo, why did you choose this photo, and things like that. So it'll really improve also their oral skills, and it gives you great prompts. And third, will be reach out to policymaker and for positive social change. Can you go to the next slide? You may go to the step 3. Even if you don't achieve step 3, still you can raise critical awarenesses and engage students in critical dialogues surrounding the topic of investigation. So often photo voice project will be more appropriate. The social issues and minority students, culturally, linguistically minority students are willing read, or even any also issues. So here also it provides students represent something significant and meaningful to them. So this is very kind of shifting from your teacher's perspective to students' perspective, in the sense, what is meaningful to us might be different from what is meaningful to students. So it's a very significant shift. And then also capture unseen or overlooked aspects of their lives or their perspectives. So as a teacher, you may not know everything what's going on in their lives. So it's a great tool. And of course, opportunities to chronicle and share else cultures, traditions, and their experiences and perspectives. Go to next slide. It's almost on. I have one more slide, and then I'll show those couple of examples. So again, advocacy and pedagogical tools. And in terms of language development, many of you mentioned the number 6 and 7, 5 or 6 and 7, narrative in writing or discussion skills are lacking. So this will be really great opportunities, again, oral discussions and narrative text that accompany photos. And bridging culture, bridging school and home cultures, will bring their lives into school, and it can lead to action for social justice as well. Next slide. So these are some examples. I did actually to action this project with the pre-service teachers. Micro-affirmation in schools and communities. That's a photo voice project. And another project that we did is everyday forms of racism and microaggressions. And the next 2 slide examples, I will show these micro-affirmation examples. And also one research done. Okay, yes, good. The student took this mural. If you in New York City, if you look around, there are so many murals, and perhaps not many of you pay attention to the murals. Here, the mural is very uplifting, right? The father is carrying a daughter on his shoulder. Can you look? Can you show the next one? Micro-affirmation
image
example. This is a morning micro-affirmation routines. Again, took photos, and the students will repeat every single day in the morning. So these are the kind of photo voice project you can think about how you can apply in your classroom situation. Can you go back to 2 slides up before? Because not only micro-affirmation, microaggression, you can use it in other also project very similar to, let's say, home environment, community environment, or health and nutrition. You can go to cafeteria, what they are eating, take photos, and also like environment wise, like go around and then how the recycling is done or not done, or disposables, and etc. So, yep, that's it. I think because we are running out of time, I want to quickly wrap up. So the final one is maybe Amanda, you can take, or is this?
Right, so here we have some articles and resources. Some of you are asking for resources. We have them here. And also I've said that you can reach out for any other additional information. I just want to show you quickly before we go to takeaways. We've attached them to our standards because that's really important, right? As we're doing this work, thinking about the skills that digital storytelling and photo voice projects are developing, right? Those tech skills, those writing language skills. And then we'll go to our takeaways. What are you leaving us with today? So in the chat, if you could just put one word, because I like to hear the words that you're leaving with. Or a phrase that you're leaving with today from this presentation. And maybe we have time for 2 people maybe to share what they're leaving with. today, and I thank you for your participation. Right, students' perspective versus teacher perspective. Thank you. We have a waterfall going on here. Engaging, thank you. Empowering students, right? Really giving them voice, affirmation, photo voice, thank you. Participation, bridging between home and school. I loved when Dr. Cho said that, because yes, that's what we want to do. Bring in our families. They can even interview their families, right? And bring in their stories. Cross-cultural, yes, thank you. Acceptance. And it's possible for all. Thank you, Jessica. Another amazing colleague of mine. Acceptance, thank you, yes. And I want you to think about sharing these projects when you do them with your colleagues and peers, right? Don't let it live in your classroom. Send them out for other people to hear and see.